An elegant home, a loving couple, and a lifeless body at the bottom of a staircase. What happened to Kathleen Peterson on that fateful December night? Was it a tragic accident or a cold-blooded murder? And what secrets were lurking beneath the surface of the perfect life she and Michael Peterson seemed to share? Today on Tales on the Couch, we unravel one of the most mysterious and debated cases in true crime history, the story that inspired the staircase. Welcome back to Tales on the Couch. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Wisdom. Today is a case you probably know of because of the documentary The Staircase. We're discussing the tragic and mysterious death of Kathleen Peterson and the trial of her husband, Michael Peterson, in less than 10 minutes. So, get cozy on the couch, settle in, and hear the story of the perfect wife. Our story begins on December 9th, 2001, in Durham, North Carolina. Kathleen Peterson, a brilliant and accomplished businesswoman, was found dead at the bottom of a staircase in her home. Her husband, Michael Peterson, was the one who called 911. His frantic voice painted a chaotic picture. His wife had fallen, there was blood everywhere, and she wasn't breathing. But as investigators arrived at the scene, the question became, was this truly a tragic accident or something far more sinister? Michael Peterson, a novelist and former mayoral candidate, immediately became the focus of the investigation. The couple seemed, by all accounts, to be living the perfect life. But as we know, appearances can be deceiving. When police arrived at the Peterson home on December 9, 2001, they were met with a disturbing scene. Kathleen Peterson's body lay at the bottom of a steep, narrow staircase, surrounded by a significant amount of blood. Her injuries included multiple lacerations to her scalp, and her clothes, a t-shirt and sweatpants, were soaked in blood. The blood patterns on the walls, staircase, and Kathleen's body seemed excessive for a simple fall, raising immediate questions. The staircase itself was wooden, with no apparent obstructions or objects that could have caused a fatal accident. Michael Peterson, her husband, was visibly distraught and had blood on his hands and clothes, which he explained was from his attempts to assist Kathleen. He told police she must have slipped and fallen after drinking wine and taking Valium. Kathleen's extensive injuries and the unusual circumstances of her death raised questions about whether this was truly an accidental fall. Over the next few days, investigators scrutinized the couple's relationship, financial situation, and Michael's personal life, uncovering elements that further fueled their suspicions. On December 20th, 2001, Michael Peterson was formally arrested and charged with the murder of his wife. Prosecutors believed they had enough evidence to suggest foul play. Their theory proposed that Michael, enraged by a potential confrontation over his secret bisexuality and extramarital affairs, had attacked Kathleen. Investigators also drew parallels between Kathleen's death and the 1985 death of Elizabeth Ratliff, a family friend of Michael's, who had also been found dead at the bottom of a staircase under suspicious circumstances. Elizabeth lived in Germany, where Michael was stationed during his time in the military. Elizabeth was a widow raising 2 daughters, whom Michael and Michael's first wife, Patricia, helped care for and grew very close to. Michael's arrest set the stage for one of the most sensational and polarizing trials in true crime history. It wasn't just the physical evidence that shaped the case, but also the exploration of Michael's personal life, his public image, and the shadow cast by Kathleen's tragic and untimely death. The case against Michael Peterson revolved around one chilling detail: the sheer amount of blood at the scene. Experts testified that Kathleen's injuries were inconsistent with a simple fall. She had deep lacerations on her scalp, and injuries that some forensic specialists claimed looked more like the result of blunt force trauma. Adding to the intrigue was a poker that investigators found suspiciously missing from the home, a fireplace tool prosecutors later argued was the murder weapon. However, no conclusive evidence tied Michael to the act, and the fireplace poker was never definitively linked to Kathleen's death. To complicate matters further, Kathleen's autopsy raised even more questions. The cause of death was ruled to be due to lacerations to the scalp caused by homicidal assault, but the exact sequence of events leading to her death remained murky. During Michael Peterson's trial for Kathleen's death, Elizabeth's body was exhumed at the request of prosecutors, who argued that her death may not have been an accident. A second autopsy conducted in the United States found injuries to her scalp that were described as consistent with blunt force trauma. This fueled the prosecution's theory that Michael Peterson had been involved in Elizabeth's death and suggested a pattern of violence. The prosecution argued that Michael Peterson killed Kathleen in a fit of rage after she discovered his alleged infidelity and secret bisexuality. Emails and explicit online chats between Michael and male escorts were discovered during the investigation, casting a shadow on their seemingly idyllic marriage. But Michael's defense team presented a very different narrative. They argued that Kathleen knew about Michael's bisexuality, accepted it, and that their relationship was as strong as ever. They proposed an alternative theory. Kathleen slipped on the stairs after consuming alcohol and taking Valium. And then there was the infamous owl theory, which suggested that a wild barred owl attacked Kathleen outside, causing the wounds on her head and a subsequent fall down the stairs. As bizarre as it sounds, this theory gained traction among some experts and remains a point of contention to this day. In 2003, Michael Peterson was found guilty of Kathleen's murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. The trial was filled with sensational moments, from the revelation about another suspicious death in Michael's past to the dramatic breakdowns of witnesses. The defense pointed to the lack of direct evidence and relied heavily on Michael's version of events, but the jury ultimately sided with the prosecution. The trial left many divided. Was Michael Peterson a grieving husband wrongfully accused, or a cold-blooded killer? Years later, the documentary series The Staircase brought renewed attention to the case. The series, directed by Jean-Xavier de Lestrade, offered a behind-the-scenes look at Michael's defense and raised serious questions about the fairness of the trial. In 2011, after nearly a decade behind bars, Michael Peterson was granted a new trial when it was revealed that one of the prosecution's key forensic experts had provided misleading testimony. Michael eventually entered an Alford plea in 2017, maintaining his innocence while accepting a lesser charge of manslaughter to avoid the risk of another trial. He walked free, but remained under the shadow of suspicion. Let's take a moment to step back and look at the psychological layers of this case. Michael Peterson was described as a charismatic and complex figure, highly intelligent and deeply articulate, but also secretive. The media painted Kathleen as the perfect wife, and her tragic death became a symbol of shattered perfection. But what do we really know about their private lives? Was this a case of hidden tensions boiling over, or a tragic accident amplified by circumstantial evidence? As we reflect on this case, it powerfully reminds us of the human tendency to seek definitive answers, even when the truth may forever remain elusive. As of 2024, Michael Peterson resides in North Carolina, living a quiet life following his release from prison in 2017. He has since returned to writing, publishing 2 books about his experiences, Behind the Staircase in 2019 and Beyond the Staircase in 2020. While he maintains a relatively low profile, his case and life continue to attract public attention due to its notoriety and portrayal in media like the Staircase documentary series. The family has experienced divisions, particularly between the children. One of his daughters firmly believes Michael is responsible for her mother's death, a perspective that has created lasting tension. Despite these fractures, Michael maintains relationships with his children, who supported him throughout his legal battles. Well, that's all the time we have for today's episode of Tales on the Couch. The murder, or accident, that claimed Kathleen Peterson's life remains one of the most hotly debated cases in modern true crime. If you haven't already, check out The Staircase for an even deeper dive into this fascinating and tragic story. What do you think? Was Michael Peterson guilty, or was he an innocent man caught in a perfect storm of suspicion and circumstantial evidence? Let us know on our social media channels, and don't forget to rate and review the show. It helps us bring more tales like this to you. And listen to my other shows, The Wisdom of Sex, where I discuss all things relationships, and Whispers of the White House, a podcast about political scandals and news. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, keep questioning, keep analyzing, stay curious, and stay wise.